It all started with a single sentence. I didn't hear Demet, my heart did. The world stopped for a moment when Yaman said those words. Reporters froze, fans flooded the comment sections, and even the silence around him seemed heavy, filled with unspoken feelings. It wasn't just another celebrity confession, it was a moment that shattered the thin wall between fiction and reality. Because everyone who had followed their story, on screen and off, knew that behind those words was something much deeper than nostalgia. It was love, regret, and maybe a truth he had hidden for years. Yaman had been sitting in front of the camera for a new Italian interview. Calm, confident, the usual look of control. But the moment Demet's name came up, something in his eyes changed. He smiled faintly, like someone remembering a dream they once lived in. Demet, he repeated softly. I didn't hear her, my heart did. The interviewer paused, confused, but didn't explain further. He just looked down for a moment, his hand tightening slightly around the glass of water in front of him. Social media exploded within minutes. What did he mean? Is he talking about their last meeting? Does he still love her? Fans from Turkey, Italy, Spain, and even Latin America began sharing the clip. Within hours, hashtags like #KenYamanShock, #DemetOzdemir, and #IHeardWithMyHeart were trending. Some said he looked sad. Others believed he was finally telling the truth that had been buried under years of fame, gossip, and separation. But those who knew Ken closely, even from his early days in Istanbul, said they recognized something else, something he had always struggled to hide. He wasn't just speaking about a moment. He was speaking about her. About that connection they once had, the one no script, no director, and no camera could truly capture. The next morning, the same sentence appeared across tabloids and entertainment headlines. Yaman's confession stuns the world. And while he remained silent after the interview, his silence only made the world's curiosity grow louder. Because deep down, everyone was asking the same question: what did Yaman really hear that day, Demet's voice, or the echo of his own heart? They said it happened on a rainy night in Istanbul, the kind of rain that makes the city feel like it's confessing, too. The streets were slick, the Bosphorus a restless mirror, and somewhere between a half-packed suitcase and a script with too many underlined lines, Can's phone lit up with a name he had trained himself not to look at, Demet. He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, because he couldn't trust what would happen if he did. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't picking up, it's staying silent when every part of you is screaming to speak. But the call didn't vanish. It lingered, a red dot on the screen, a tremor in his chest. Minutes later, a voice note arrived. He pressed play, just to, what? To torture himself? To hear the one voice that could unravel the careful life he had built abroad? Her voice crackled softly, threaded with that quiet strength he knew too well. I don't know if you'll hear this, but I need to say it. I don't think we ever really stopped listening to each other. The rain tapped the window like a metronome. He didn't hear her with his ears, not really. He felt the wave of a memory, her laughter between takes, the way she'd look at him 2 beats after a joke landed, the secret timing only they shared. It wasn't sound, it was pulse. Flashback further. A rehearsal room that smelled like coffee and dust. The lights too bright, the world too small. A line on a page that meant nothing until she said it, until he answered it, and suddenly the text was alive, breathing. People said they had chemistry, the truth is, they had gravity. She would tilt her head a fraction, and he would find himself orbiting. Directors loved it. Fans worshipped it. But the price of a perfect scene is often an imperfect life. Too many headlines. Too many flights. Too many people touching a story that wasn't theirs to touch. The last time they met face to face, there were no cameras. Just a hallway that echoed with steps that didn't want to end. She told him he looked tired. He told her she looked brave. They stood as if a door between them might open if they were patient enough. It didn't. So they settled for words that dodged their targets. You're doing well. I'm happy for you. We'll talk. they were both lying and both telling the truth. He left with a knot in his chest that no success could untie. So when he said, "I didn't hear Demet, my heart did," he wasn't trying to be poetic. He was admitting the oldest secret between them: their real conversations had never been spoken. They happened in the pause after a line, in the air between a question and a look, in the way silence could feel crowded with meaning when they were in the same room. That night in Istanbul, the voice note didn't simply play, it arrived. The rain softened. The room felt smaller. He closed his eyes and remembered the way she breathes before a difficult sentence. And he understood, some messages don't enter through the ear. They pass through the places you've tried to lock, the places you swore you'd keep empty. He listened again, this time without pressing play. By the time the sun rose over Rome, Ken hadn't slept. His phone lay beside him, still showing Demet's name from hours earlier. He'd listened to that message more times than he cared to admit, not to understand the words, but to feel them. Every syllable had a heartbeat behind it. Every pause was a piece of unfinished history. He had built an entire new life in Italy, surrounded by success, cameras, and admiration, yet a single 30-second recording had managed to collapse it all. In the interviews, he always appeared composed, smiling, joking, distant enough to seem untouchable. But those who looked closely could see it, the hesitation when her name was mentioned, the faint tremor in his voice, the shadow of something unresolved. The fans saw it too. They called it the look. The look that said, "She's still somewhere in there." For years, Ken had tried to convince himself that what they shared was only a chapter, not the whole story. But every project, every set, every co-star seemed to echo the same rhythm he'd once had with Demet. That effortless connection, the way a scene could turn into something real without warning. He knew it wasn't fair to compare, but the heart doesn't care about fairness. It remembers, even when the mind orders it to forget. He stood by the window, watching the early Roman traffic, hearing faint echoes of a city he used to walk with her. No one knew about the letter he kept in the drawer, the one she had written before they drifted apart. It was short, written in her tiny, careful handwriting. Maybe love doesn't end. Maybe it just changes its language. He had never replied. He didn't know how. But those words had haunted him more than silence ever could. So when he finally spoke that sentence in the interview, "I didn't hear Demet, my heart did," it wasn't planned. It slipped out, raw and unfiltered. The interviewer thought it was metaphorical. The audience thought it was romantic. But for Ken, it was something else entirely. A surrender. Because for the first time in years, he had stopped pretending that he could separate himself from what he felt. He wasn't talking to the world. He was talking to her. And somewhere across the sea, as the world tried to decode his words, Demet heard the clip too. She sat quietly, phone in hand, her expression unreadable. No tears, no smile. Just that familiar stillness before emotions decide what to become. And though no one could prove it, those who knew her said she whispered something under her breath, something that sounded like, "I heard you too." Within 24 hours, every entertainment outlet from Istanbul to Madrid was running the same headline: "World in shock, Yaman's confession about Demet Özdemir." Clips from the interview flooded social media feeds. Fans dissected every frame, every blink, every breath he took. Look at his eyes when he says her name. He still loves her, you can tell. That pause wasn't accidental. The internet had turned into a court of emotion, and everyone was a judge trying to decode what his heart had already confessed. Demet tried to stay silent, but silence is a fragile thing when millions are watching. She was filming her new project when one of her co-stars showed her the clip on set. She smiled politely, said, "Oh, that's old news," and went back to her lines. But those who were there remember that her hands trembled slightly when she picked up her script. Later that evening, she drove alone through the streets of Istanbul, windows down, city lights flickering over her face. The radio was playing one of the songs they used to listen to between shoots. She turned it off halfway through. Meanwhile, Can's phone was a battlefield of unread messages. Friends, journalists, producers, even his mother, all asking the same thing: why did you say it? But how do you explain something that your mouth didn't plan, something your heart blurted out before your brain could stop it? He wrote a few replies, deleted them all, then threw the phone on the couch. There was no answer that wouldn't sound like a confession. By midnight, Italian TV channels were replaying the clip with subtitles. Turkish news called it the most unexpected emotional slip of the year. Some fans called it destiny, others called it marketing. But those closest to Can knew it wasn't strategy, it was memory. A memory that had refused to fade, no matter how many borders he crossed. That night, Demet posted a single photo on Instagram, a blurry shot of a sunset over the Bosphorus. No caption, no location tag. Just that. Within minutes, the comment section was flooded. She's answering him. This is for Can. They're both hurting. But the truth was simpler. She wasn't answering the world. She was answering him. The kind of quiet answer that only two people in the same story could understand. Somewhere in Rome, Can saw the post. He didn't like it. He didn't comment. He just looked at it for a long time, tracing the edge of the sun with his thumb over the screen. He remembered the last time they'd watched a sunset together, sitting on a balcony in silence, because sometimes silence says what words can't. Back then, he thought silence was peace. Now he knew it was longing disguised as calm. The next day, during a press event, a journalist asked him directly, "Do you still talk to Demet Özdemir?" He smiled, paused, and replied softly, "Some conversations don't need words." The room went quiet. Cameras clicked. And once again, the world was in shock. It was a week later when everything changed again. A rumor started quietly, an unconfirmed report from a small Italian blog claiming that Can and Demet had been seen in the same hotel in Capri. At first, no one believed it. It sounded like wishful thinking, another fantasy created by fans who refused to let go of their favorite story. But then, blurry photos began to surface. Two silhouettes, one with a familiar posture, another with hair caught by the sea wind. No faces, no proof, but enough to send the world spiraling. Can didn't confirm it. Demet didn't deny it. And that silence was all the confirmation the world needed. Behind closed doors, the truth was much more fragile than the headlines made it seem. They hadn't planned to meet. Fate, or maybe unfinished business, had done it for them. They were both in Capri for separate projects, staying in the same hotel without knowing it. Until one night, as fate would have it, they crossed paths in the quiet hallway outside the lobby. No cameras, no fans, just the soft hum of the sea outside and the faint tension of two hearts suddenly recognizing each other again. "Demet," he said quietly, as if saying her name might make her disappear. She froze, turned, and for a second, all the years vanished. The room, the hotel, the world, it all fell away. There was only the past, standing face to face. "You look the same," he said. "You don't," she replied softly, though her eyes betrayed a tremor of emotion. They didn't hug. They didn't touch. They just stood there, like two people afraid that even a small movement would break the fragile spell. Finally, she said, "You really said it, that sentence." He nodded, unsure whether to smile or apologize. "I didn't plan to," he said. "I just felt it." Her gaze dropped to the floor. "You always did feel too much," she whispered. A long silence followed. He wanted to say everything he hadn't said that night in Istanbul, the apologies, the truths, the what-ifs. But sometimes the most honest thing two people can share is silence. He finally broke it, softly, "You called me that night." "I know," she said. "I didn't expect you to answer." "I did," he confessed, "just not with my phone." She looked up at him then, eyes glistening, not with tears, but with something harder to define. "You heard me," she said. "With my heart," he finished. They both smiled, small, weary smiles. The kind that come from knowing a love hasn't died, only changed its shape. They didn't make promises that night. They didn't talk about the future. They simply walked together to the hotel terrace and watched the sea, letting the sound of the waves fill the spaces where words used to be. Somewhere below, a tourist was playing a soft tune on a guitar. And for the first time in years, they didn't feel like actors in someone else's story. They were just two people who had loved, lost, and finally, understood. The next morning, when the sun rose over Capri, they had already gone their separate ways again. No photos, no proof, only the whisper of a moment that both of them would carry, quietly, for the rest of their lives. By the time the world woke up, the rumors had turned into wildfire. Can and Demet, secret meeting in Capri. Love reignites after years apart. The heart never forgets. Headlines blazed across screens like fireworks that refused to fade. Fans compared flight logs, hotel photos, and even reflections on cafe windows to prove what everyone already believed: fate had intervened. Yet amid the noise, neither of them said a word. No confirmations, no denials, only silence, and somehow that silence was louder than any statement could have been. Ken stayed in Italy for another week. Every morning, he went for a run by the sea, the same route they had walked that night. He didn't listen to music, he didn't answer calls. People close to him said he looked different. Calmer, but distant, as if part of him was still standing on that terrace in Capri. During one of his interviews, a reporter tried again, asking, "Do you think love ever truly ends?" Ken smiled faintly, that same careful smile he used when the truth hurt too much to share. "No," he said. "It just changes where it lives." The audience thought he was being poetic. But those who knew what had happened understood, his heart had simply changed address. Demet returned to Istanbul, to the rhythm of work, lights, and lines. Yet something had shifted in her too. On set, she seemed quieter, more present, as if she had finally made peace with a ghost she'd carried too long. When asked about Can, she gave the gentlest answer of her career: "Sometimes you don't stop caring, you just stop needing to say it out loud." The interviewer nodded politely, not realizing that the sentence carried more truth than any headline could hold. The story faded over time, as all storms do. New shows premiered, new rumors bloomed. But every now and then, something would bring it back: a photo from years ago, a clip from that unforgettable interview, a fan who whispered, he said he heard her with his heart. And even though neither of them ever publicly revisited that moment, the world continued to keep their story alive, piece by piece, heartbeat by heartbeat. Months later, Ken was seen attending a quiet charity gala in Rome. Cameras followed him as usual, but what caught attention wasn't his suit or his smile, it was the bracelet he wore. Simple, silver, and almost identical to the one Demet had worn years earlier. Fans noticed immediately. "It's the same one." He never stopped. But for Can, it wasn't about fashion or nostalgia. It was about memory, about carrying something that no distance, no fame, and no silence could erase. As the night drew to an end, a journalist asked if he had any message for his fans. He paused, looked at the flashing lights, and said softly, "Listen to your heart. It hears things the world can't." It was the same tone, the same calm honesty that had once turned the world upside down. Somewhere in Istanbul, maybe by the sea or in the quiet of her living room, Demet heard that clip. She didn't comment, she didn't post, but she smiled, just once, and whispered to herself, "I know." And that was the end of the story the world thought it knew, but the beginning of one that belonged only to them. Two souls connected not by words, but by something deeper, something that never truly ended, because it had never been just love. It was an echo, a pulse, a memory that kept beating quietly between them. When Ken said, "I didn't hear Demet, my heart did," he wasn't speaking for the cameras or the fans. He was speaking for every silent moment they had ever shared, every emotion too big for language. And long after the interviews ended and the headlines faded, that single sentence continued to live, carried by those who still believed that sometimes, love doesn't need to be heard, only felt.